Dre Team, it's your boy D Neal, back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with 7 fascinating takeaways from a rare and revealing interview with F1 genius Adrian Newey. I wanted to react to this because I had seen from a channel called Race, or The Race. I react to multiple of their videos. They did a poll where it's like, who's most responsible for Red Bull's success, and the options were Max Verstappen, Christian Horner, Adrian Newey, or the Honda engine. And Adrian Newey won that poll like it was a landslide. And I hadn't heard I'm a recent F1 fan, and I am a fan of Red Bull as I am a fan of other teams as well. I think Max Verstappen is an incredible driver, Christian Horner, an incredible team principal. I hadn't heard of Adrian Newey, so I'm excited to learn more about him and why he's the #1 reason for Red Bull's success. Before we jump in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, give the video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. What we got?
Adrian Newey is one of the most iconic names in Formula One, a design genius who has overseen World Championship winning success with Williams, McLaren and Red Bull. Newey has enjoyed a phenomenal career with incredible longevity, with his cars winning races and championships from the early 90s all the way up to the present day. But Newey has never courted the limelight that his talents and achievements would deserve. He rarely gives interviews, and he definitely isn't one for sound bites over a Grand Prix weekend.
Oh, this is The Race. This is the one who did the poll. Yeah, this is the one who did the poll.
However, The Race's F1 writer Mark Hughes got a rare opportunity to sit down with Newey for an in-depth conversation, which recently became the 10,000th article published on our website since we launched in February 2020. It was a fitting way to mark such a big moment for us, and the interview was so good we thought we'd go through some of the highlights from it with you here on our YouTube channel as well. So let's take a rare glimpse inside the mind of one of F1's most successful and fascinating characters.
Let's do it.
After 4 years of domination with Sebastian Vettel at Red Bull, Newey found himself questioning his future in F1 in 2014, and it was all Renault's fault. It wasn't simply that he'd got used to winning again and Renault was slow out of the blocks in the hybrid era. It was the French manufacturer's attitude. Newey said, "We had a supplier that seemed more interested in the marketing angle that came from being in F1 than actually being competitive." And he went on to say that Renault didn't want to accept it was behind and didn't seem motivated to do enough about its plight. Newey admits he lost motivation. He turned down offers from Mercedes and Ferrari because deep down he didn't want to leave behind everything he'd helped build at Red Bull. But the Renault situation pushed him very close to walking away from F1 entirely.
Dang. So, because Renault was making the engine before like Honda came into play, right? So they drove Renault. He's like, dude, if we're gonna keep getting this trash, like this trash engine, and they don't want to innovate. They don't want to take a step into the next chapter. They're stuck in the past, and we can't compete with this. You feel me? Can't compete with this engine. It's like, I feel that, Newey. Talk to me. Newey was ready to call it quits because of Renault.
Walking away from F1 entirely.
Or Renault.
While Red Bull and Renault fell out in public over the years that followed, Newey's day-to-day involvement in F1 waned. He admits there were some years where he wouldn't get a proper look at the latest regulations and the new cars until arriving at the first race of the season, at which point he would set about trying to help Red Bull improve its car. The Aston Martin Valkyrie supercar project kept him busy during those years, and his passion for F1 was reinvigorated when Honda arrived as Red Bull's new engine partner. Referencing Renault again, Newey told us, "If you have an engine partner that's below the competitors but shows a real desire and a will to fix it, then you accept it." With Honda, that's what Red Bull had. Newey says the Japanese engine was not quite there in 2019, but Honda's drive and motivation to get it right changed his attitude towards jumping back into F1. It certainly paid off, with Max Verstappen winning Red Bull's first championship since Vettel's 4th title in 2013, and the team making a strong start to the new rules era in 2022.
Dang, yeah, that's so dope. I got my guy excited again. know what I'm saying, reinvented Newey. He was excited to come back and get to work with Red Bull again. Now that they got maybe an engine that from a brand that wasn't as competitive in F1, but they were willing to get to that level. They were pushing. They wanted to be innovative. They wanted to continue to get better. Where it seems like Renault didn't really want to take any input from Red Bull, and they wanted to do things the way they wanted to do. It was like their way or the highway. And they weren't willing to take that step into the next era. Where it seems Honda was all ears, trying to make the engine as good as possible, willing to take as much input as possible. And so that got Newey excited again, it sounds like.
Newey wasn't impressed with the 2022 rules when he first saw them. In fact, he goes as far as saying he was quite depressed by them.
Oh, wow.
As one of F1's great creative minds, he's always taken issue with the constant tightening of the regulations, which he feels can stifle clever thinking. But once he got stuck into the new package for this year, he was pleasantly surprised. Newey found there was freedom in some areas, most notably the side pods, floor and suspension. So he's not been surprised to see as much variation as there is on the grid in those areas, although he admitted that he didn't see the Mercedes side pod solution coming. Before we move on to some more of the things Newey talked about with Mark Hughes, we've got a question for you. Of all the iconic cars Newey has designed, which is your favourite? Let us know in the comments, and if you're not already a subscriber to our channel, we'd love to have you along so you never miss another video from us.
Yeah, I didn't know I don't know the other cars that he's designed. All I know of Newey is Red Bull because I just got into the sport, so I don't know about the other cars and the championships he's won with other teams.
This entry might turn the comments of this video into the typical F1 social media war zone, and we can only apologise for that. But while Newey understandably takes the Red Bull party line in stating the Silverstone collision between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton was a clear professional foul by the Mercedes driver, he's more balanced on their late season altercations. He accepts that Verstappen's run off track in defending his position in the Brazilian Grand Prix was a bit naughty, and he adds that the eventual world champion shouldn't have brake tested Hamilton in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, even if he feels that was done out of frustration.
I remember those things. I remember both of those things for sure. Max was different, but that season it did seem like every time Max did something wrong, like he was getting punished, like where he had to either drop his place or go place his back. And then a couple of times you see Lewis do something wrong, and it was just like give up the gap. Or, you know what I'm saying? The punishment didn't seem as severe at the moment. But then towards the end of that Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, you felt like it was more favored toward Max. And so it was, that was just a crazy race to end an absolute crazy season. But an incredible season.
Newey believes Verstappen's reputation for being wild is unfair, and he thinks it takes time for a driver to shake off a label like that once the paddock has made its mind up. Verstappen is the 7th driver to win a championship driving one of Newey's cars, and perhaps unsurprisingly,
crazy.
Newey finds him great to work with. He finds Verstappen very open, saying he always wrings a car's neck, and when you ask him to do something, he'll always try it. He praises Verstappen's feedback and his awareness of what the tyres are doing and how to manage them. And he says drivers like Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo are easy to work with because their approach to debriefs is to concentrate on the things you need to know, while also being happy to take time to answer follow-up questions. Newey also gave a fascinating insight into working with Sebastian Vettel and Mika Häkkinen, so check out the link to the article in the description of this video if you want to read about those. It's not an exaggeration to say that Newey almost wasn't around to see his latest World Championship success at the end of 2021. Just a few months earlier, he suffered a fractured skull while on holiday in Croatia, and were it not for the help of former F1 Supremo Bernie Ecclestone among others, Newey might not still be here to tell us how it happened. Newey had knocked himself out after falling down a 6-foot drop onto a rocky beach while cycling, but having come to a few seconds later, he thought he'd escaped with just a gash to the head. However, when he woke up feeling dreadful the next morning, action was required. Eccleston used his Croatian contacts to get hold of a top neurosurgeon who got Newey admitted to hospital. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner arranged for Newey to be flown back to the UK, where his friend Joe Macari found a neurosurgeon to operate on the skull that houses one of the most brilliant minds in F1 history.
Jesus.
Having missed a few races, Newey returned to the paddock in Turkey, but that was probably a little too soon, and he says he still wasn't feeling great until the next race in America. Looking back at it now, in his brilliantly understated way, he sums it up as a silly accident and not recommended.
Dang, I'm glad there was people around him to help him and then get him in the surgery that he needed and to get him that had connections with doctors and because from what I've seen in this video, he's definitely just one of the most brilliant minds, if not the most brilliant mind in F1 when it comes to car design.
So Newey has come close to not being here at all or simply walking away from F1 in the past. He's 63 now and has been working in top-level motorsport since the early 1980s, so it's fair to wonder what his next steps might be as he ponders a life away from the coalface. He knows he'd get bored if he just stopped working altogether, even though he could certainly afford it. F1-wise, he's hinted at taking a slightly distant advisory role, similar to what Rory Byrne has done at Ferrari. However, he'd want to be making genuinely useful contributions rather than just appearing at the factory from time to time to be a distraction to the design team. He's also got a big interest in the future of road cars, especially as he feels that industry is heading in the wrong direction by creating big, heavy electric vehicles that he feels aren't particularly efficient. If a manufacturer could ever convince Newey to make the full-time switch, the road car industry's gain would very much be F1's loss. There's lots more to hear from Newey in the interview on our website, so make sure you check out the link in the description of this video to give that a read, and we hope you've enjoyed our little overview here of some of the things he talked about.
Yeah, and so it's dope. I get to learn a little bit more about Adrian Newey, one of the fantastic minds in F1. And I can understand why a lot of people feel like he's the number one reason for Red Bull's success. It seems like he's just brilliant. The man's just brilliant. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion? You can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy D Neal. Out.